I've answered it in a slightly different way, or even answer a slightly different question. No, I was just going to say, with the last question, which has a bearing on that, because we shot Wonders of Life on an Alexa. And so what the Alexa's done is bring, it's democratised quality, hasn't it, as a camera, because it's a camera now that you can afford to shoot television documentaries on as well as film. But what was done is, and that's a question to Danny, I suppose. What our cameraman did on Wonders of Life was he wanted. It becomes about lenses then, and we shot it on Cooke 1970s Cooke lenses, which give you a look back and flare in a particular way and give you a particular colour palette on the Alexa. So I wonder how much it is about the film and how much it's about the glass you put on the front of it, which is still there and the same as it's ever been.
This was shot on Cooke lenses as well. Alvin Kuchler shot this, and he shot it on Cooke lenses as well, which are anamorphic lenses. No, I think it's all to do with, actually, funnily enough, it's all to do with the television sets that people watch things on now, I'm afraid. And they are those huge TVs, and you watch them, they have got correction buttons on them. You can turn the sharpness down, but people don't. They watch it in that way that is super real. And that is the diet. That is what people are, their eye is getting trained to look at, like ours have got trained to look at film for so long. And the Japanese are now developing, and the stuff we watch is basically 2K resolution, and the Japanese have skipped the next stage, which is 4K, and they're developing 8K resolution, and you will not be able to perceive the difference. When you put that on a big screen and you can't see the screen sides, your eye will not be able to tell the difference between that. You will think you can walk into that picture, because it's beyond real. And that's the way we're going. That's what digital will bring, and the artists will find a way of working with that, which is as interesting as the great filmmakers of the 40s and the 70s found of working with film.
And I mean, interesting enough, Doug Trumbull, who did the special effects, did the Stargate sequence on 2001 and then went on to direct Silent Running, was the guy who invented ShowScan, which was the 60 frames a second back in the 1970s, who was saying, this is the thing, you look at it, your eye can't tell the difference. Also interesting that Alexander Payne makes Nebraska, which is a black and white film which looks like 16mm, shot on an Alexa, and then degraded. They put an artificial computer thing over it to make it look like grainy old knackered stock. So,
well, I think we've been using older and older lenses in the documentaries to stop it looking crisp. You could put these very beautiful Zeisses on it, and it looks so crisp that then it looks wrong. I agree with you, actually, when you see the very high definition images, that they're not inviting. I think there's something wonderful about the imperfection, but you can do that by putting older and more characterful lenses on it, and then no one can grade it out once you've messed it up.
But like real-time television, the nightmare is for presenters on real-time television and these high-definition televisions, because they're doing real-time interviews, and they've got a pimple. And you see that on these high-definition televisions as, that's horrible. Because TV presenters should look like Brian with good complexions and, But what they'll do is they'll develop real-time software that will get away with that will do away with that pimple, even as it grows in front of you. They'll find a way of, and they'll just overcome that. It'll be amazing.
Mark?
Yes?
Mark, do you think there's any chance we could kidnap Danny and bring him down to the Plaza in January? Thoughts in the series.
We show 35mm films, because I am, when you're looking at me and you said you can't be nostalgic about this, I mean, you probably did this unknowingly, but I am massively nostalgic about film because I do believe there is something about it, but hey. I think we've probably got time for, to go there, sir.
Question for all three of you. Other than Sunshine, obviously, what is your favourite film of this genre and why?
Your favourite science fiction film?
Solaris, the original Solaris, Tarkovsky. So there were two films made at the same time. 2001, which is the more famous one. Kubrick, an American in Europe. This is before the Americans or the Russians were in space, really. And he was making that, and at the same time, almost competitively, Tarkovsky in Russia was making Solaris, but he had very few resources available to him to do it. But I think that's the greatest film, space film ever. And if you've never seen it, the original, read the book, the Stanislav Lem book it's based on, and see the movie. It's like out there, absolutely. That's my favourite.
Star Wars episode, no. The one that made the biggest impact on me was Alien, but that's a timing thing. It's because I was, and it never happened now, sadly. I was in a film club at school. Every Friday evening after school, they used to show films in a little hall like this, actually, with a screen and just project them. And so I was 11, it was 1979 when it came out, and I saw Alien. It was the first film they screened at my school when I was 11 years old. And can you imagine seeing it? And it was 11, and the second one was Life of Brian. So I had this tremendous introduction. So it made an enormous impact on me because I saw it in a school hall like this on a big screen when I was 11. But also, you mentioned Silent Running, actually. I know we were talking earlier, I forgot that. I think that's a brilliant film as well. I loved Silent Running.
Well, Silent Running is my favourite science fiction film of all time. And I think, I mean, the reason Trumbull said that he made it is a response to having worked on 2001 and having spent all this time dealing with a film which he thought was basically inhuman. And he wanted to make something that went the other way. And it's when you look at Silent Running's credits, I mean, Michael Cimino is one of the screenwriters on it, Steve Bochco is one of the screenwriters, then went on to radically transform the face of modern television. Doug Trumbull, who came out of doing that, and essentially, you know, after that, and just one other feature film, went into just exploration of the way in which you shoot stuff. He developed Show Scan. He became somebody who wasn't interested in making more features. And the beautiful thing about Silent Running is, on the one hand, it has the look of a you know, very impressive space film because Trumbull's come out in 2001, but it's fantastically sentimental. It has a score by Peter Schickele. It has an opening song and a midway song by Joan Baez, which are, you know, sort of warbly and folksy from the 1970s. It's written with this wanton disregard for science, in as much as it is inconceivable that a guy in the position of Freeman Lowell could not realise that what's wrong with the plants is that there's no sunlight. And yet the whole point is it makes no sense at all. And I also think the drones are brilliantly done. And I think that the four actors who performed those drones do an incredible job. Because just the tiny little, because they're amputees walking on their arms. And the way in which they give character to what are essentially walking boxes is just brilliant. So I think it combines, on the one hand, the awe of space and the loneliness of space. Plus, everyone thinks it's just sentimental. Everyone forgets at the beginning of that film, Bruce Dern blows two people up and kills another person with a shovel, and he's the hero. So, probably time for one more question, I think. Yeah, and the lady there in the with the white.
It's interesting. Well, Mike makes the famous story about Alien. You know, if you've seen the first Alien film, if you watch it again. So he turned up, he had these sets built, you know, and the astronauts like John Hurt walked through in these wide shots in their spacesuits. And when he turned up, the sets he was disappointed that they weren't big enough. So what he did is he got some children, about 8, 9 years old, and made them spacesuits, and they walk through in the wide shots.
It's
and
when you see them walking up to where the space jockey is the first time.
Yeah, and so the sets look twice as big. But you watch it now and you know they're children. They walk different from adults, it spoils it. There, I've ruined it for you. Favourite film as well.
Yes.
I was just wondering, as the film relies so much on special effects, with the cast, I was wondering how you approach the rehearsal process, because obviously actors often ground their performances in their own experiences of life.
Yeah, it's a huge issue and it's ongoing, and we've all seen terrible performances by our favourite actors when they're confronted with an invisible dragon, you know, and they're pretending there's a dragon there, and they have two responses. They either overact, like, the dragon is there, or they think, I'm not going to get caught out like he did, pretending there's a dragon there, I won't be bothered too much. And they underact like he couldn't be bothered whether there's a dragon there or not, because it's just a green screen. And it's a major issue for them. And we tried in this film to make everything as real as possible. So when he faces the sun at the end, and although the sun is obviously CG, the light was a wall of light which was as big as this proscenium arch of little disco, what they call like discs, you know, that spin round in old 70s disco, and you shine light on them, and it's not a glitter ball, it's like literally like a disc, and you just sew it into a thread, and then another one, and another one, and another one, like you make a dress out of these discs, and we just made a wall out of them and shone light into it. So that's what he's looking at the end, and it helps him act it, because he's got something real, like light, to react to. But it's a major problem, yeah.
Did he use any sound effects with the cast in that to help them preempt when there were effects?
Yeah, when he was doing that bit at the end, we were playing him Coldplay, Fix You. Actually, funnily enough, we were playing that in his ear, but it didn't really work. So
the look of horror on his face.
Chris Martin was there on, yeah.
You could have sent Chris Martin into the sun. Anyway. Yeah, that's. Okay, I think we need to draw this to a close. And thank you ever so much, everybody, for coming, and thanks for your fantastic questions. The bar was indeed set very high at the beginning, but thank